this week for us.
Yeah.
All right, so the Jaguars and Jets just kicked off too. Okay. So let's talk to the Detroit Lions though. Because they just won another game, very close game with the Jets. And now 2 games in a row with absolute ballsy calls on fourth downs to seal the game or pull ahead. I mean, we remember the Penei Sewell one against the Vikings to seal the game on fourth down.
Yep.
If they miss, great field position for the Vikings to get back into the game.
Yep.
You throw it a tackle. So ballsy. And then you do this one where it's like you're going 4th and 1 and you're anticipating all on run. Brock Wright should get an Oscar for his performance in the block, the faux block, and then to pull out. And then I watched the sound bit with CJ Mosley talking crap right before with Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow and Jonah Jackson, and he's like, "Y'all suck," and then he gets burned.
He gets just completely burned by Brock Wright, completely turned around.
So just a great. I mean, it's a great call in hindsight, but it's like, man, this is ballsy as it gets. But this team is going to give everything they have to the whistle for Campbell right now. They're playing really great football. Probably in recent memory, honestly, even when they made the playoffs in 2014,
this is a better team.
They're playing like a better team. The only thing I remember different is Terrell Austin had like the defense was like a top 6 defense that year.
Yep. The
so
defense
they were fun to watch.
Well, their defensive tackles were elite. And they had,
they had Fairley and Sue and
Corey
Williams
was literally unblockable.
Corey Williams to rotate in and out.
Corey Williams was good. They had some good defensive ends. And they were
they have the two people that are in the Pro Bowl this year on other teams, Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs.
Yeah. So they had
Glover Quinn had a Pro Bowl year that year.
Yeah. So they had they were elite on defense, which is not the case this year. They've got some guys that are playing really well and filling roles. But they're more of a bend but don't break right now.
Secondary still gets torched a little too much for my liking.
Secondary gives me heartburn.
Diabetes.
Secondary is ridiculously. I mean, just sometimes it's like, what do we? I mean, even at the end of the game, it's like you gave him a chance.
Yeah, Zach Wilson was just throwing them up, and they're just landing.
Right.
Like,
I mean, that was their best offense for the Jets. So, but yeah, this is the best football that the Lions have played in some time, I would say. Just complimentary. You feel good about. I mean, you're watching them, and you're like, okay, all this makes. Like, how, like, if you're watching a game and even if it isn't going right, like, it all at least makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not a, like, what are you doing? It's like, all right, like, maybe we didn't execute or maybe, like, it didn't work, right? But it's like, all right, that made sense at least. And that's where you're at right now with the Lions. It's like, all right, all that made sense. Maybe they didn't, block it perfectly, or maybe the run wasn't exactly how it should have been, or maybe Goff just missed the throw a little bit. But, like, that made sense, right?
Yeah, we saw with the last game.
Maybe somebody didn't just make a play in the air, but like it makes sense. And it took us like 8 games to get to that point though, which is annoying. But now it all makes sense. The coaching decisions are making sense. I know they're extremely aggressive, but like they're understandable, right? When earlier in the year it was like, what are we doing? Like, come on.
And they've still like hit some speed bumps in a lot of the games. Like, was it they had 2 games against the Vikings where they just penalty after penalty, and they were really
even this game they allowed the Jets to have a good chance down the field a couple times on some penalties and made some ridiculously stupid plays on balls in the air. Like
they weren't paying attention. They just weren't looking for
that one duck that Wilson threw down the sideline. It's like, how do you not, you know what I mean? So
that's a pick 6. Again, in a disciplined defense, that's a pick 6.
Exactly. It was just terrible play. So there's still some things to clean up and some things that they need to get better at. But all in all, like you really can't have many complaints the last 5-6 weeks, I'd say. It's been fun to watch. It's good football. I know they lost to Buffalo, and there's some games they want to have back, and there's some games they easily could have won, where they could be in probably in really good shape from a playoff position. But I think they're knocking on the door. So we'll see.
Yeah, they get the Carolina Panthers on the road this week, and then after this they get to play their last home game of the year against the Bears, and then they have to go back on the road in Lambeau, take on hopefully not Aaron Rodgers, who I don't know. We'll see. I don't that's my biggest concern of all the games so far.
Yep.
Really, I think I'm a little concerned about this Panthers game. Like if I have to rank the confidence scale on all the games this year, like out of all 16 games this week, I'm saying like I'm like a 6 confident.
I'm
That
slightly above like even.
yeah,
I'm slightly above 50-50. I think the Lions should win, but
it's still a road game. It's
other
still a
than
road game,
yeah, it's a
and
road
the
game.
Panthers still have something to play for.
And Goff typically just doesn't play quite as well on the road. And that's normal for most quarterbacks, but he typically just does not play quite as good. And the Panthers aren't horrendous. They have some good players still.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I worry about this one more than I think the Packers game is probably the worst on paper.
I think you and I both worried about the Jets game a little bit. That defense, a lot of people still consider the Jets to have a top 5 defense in the league right now.
Yeah, of the run, starting with the Jaguars, that Jets game was the one I worried about the most. The Packers was second. So
yeah, just going to Lambeau, and I have PTSD from like probably 8 to 10 years ago where they had a chance to get in the playoffs and had to go to Lambeau and then they lost.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it stings a little bit. Aaron Rodgers, you just never know.
Yeah, and he could have a crazy good game. This isn't a very good Packers team. It's obvious, but they're starting to figure some things out as well. They're starting to get a little bit better too at the same time the Lions are. And Rodgers has owned the Lions a little bit, so it worries me for sure.
Well, and Sam Darnold is playing quarterback now for the Panthers this week. PJ Walker, I think, is the backup, but he's also still a little banged up. So they don't really have anyone after that's going to be able to play. They might they don't have anyone in the practice squad either.
Yeah.
For quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting. Their options after they traded Baker Mayfield away. They haven't really replaced that Matt Corral is on IR. So obviously they were on tank mode for a minute and they stayed competitive in the division. And NFC West or NFC South has been really pretty bad this year.
Yeah.
So, when they traded Christian McCaffrey and they still made it work with Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard and Blackshear, it's like they're still in this. That's why they still have something to play for this far into the season.
They essentially eliminated themselves last week. But again, they're kind of in that in between where it's like they're still playing for something yet not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean I think they're only a game down on the Bucks though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and there's 3 games left. So the Bucks do lose 2 and the Panthers somehow win 2, then they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. Obviously, there's key players on defense for like the Panthers that are really good, but I don't think it's deep enough all the way around. Like Jeremy Chin, nice safety. Brian Burns is one of the better edge rushers in the league.
Yeah.
I always like Shaq Thompson. You expect J.C. Horn to kind of play like that early first round pick he was. They traded for C.J. Henderson, who kind of looked like a bust for Jacksonville a while back.
Yeah.
Me and Big Ten fans remember Penn State's edge rusher Etur Gross-Matos. He's down there. So Derek Brown, yeah. So they have guys that maybe haven't played up to their potential, but are quality enough players where it's like this could be interesting.
Yeah.
I expect the Lions to win this game though. So if I'm picking a score right now, I think they're going to move the ball better against this defense than what we did against the Jets.
Jets have a good defense.
Yeah, Jets do, and we got 20. It was a grind to get to 20. I think that the Lions should be able to score 27. So I'm going to say 27. Badgley gets 2 field goals. I'm going to say 27-20.
I'm going to say 34-20. I think they're going to get, I'll say 31-20.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, you're feeling really good about a team if they're going on the road and they're still winning by 2 scores or 2 scores. So
yeah, I'm going to go 31-20. I think they're going to be able to move the ball better. Um, the defense will still keep keep everything in front of you. Don't let anything crazy get behind you. Even when they gave up a ton of yards to the Vikings, they didn't give up. I mean, the couple to Justin Jefferson, I guess, but they didn't really give up just massive chunks at a time, right? They gave up some to Jefferson and a couple to Dalvin Cook through the pass game, actually, but nothing crazy. KJ Osborne, I think, had a couple too, but nothing like no 70-yard, just massive busts. So I think that's key. Just make teams drive the field on this team, and force a couple field goals and trust your offense to take advantage. So
How do you feel about the Lions' playoffs chance now going 3 games left? Their odds increased from if they win out. They were 84% if they won out like last week
uh,
before the Jets game. They went all the way up to 96% now if they win out.
yep.
Um, and it's like 52% if they go 3-1
Mhm.
or 2-1, except if they go 2-1 and lose to the Packers, it falls down to 48% because then the Packers
Yeah,
are still.
I mean, I would still give it a 50-50 shot for the most part, though. You know what I mean? I kind of am agreeing with those odds, right? It's really hard to win that many games in a row when you have to. You know what I mean? Like when everything's on the line. Not they could lose and not even have an off week. The Packers could just play really well, or the Panthers could just play really well and just beat them. The Lions are not they're a good team. I will even say they are a good team right now. They're not a good enough team to not play really well and win. You know what I mean? They have to be playing at the top of their game.
If
Um,
they go 9-1 into the playoffs in their last 10 games,
no one is
teams
going to
are
want
are
to play that
legit
team.
teams are legitimately going to be scared of them.
Nobody will want to play them. Nobody wants to play them now, if we're being
Yeah,
honest. They
really, I
are
think
a
they do.
good football team. That's what I was talking to somebody earlier today. I'm like, they're a legitimately good football team right now. Um, even I would say upper tier team right now, on both sides of the ball. Now they're a kind of team that I feel like can have some peaks and valleys, though, where they can kind of go up and down, mostly because um, they don't have the depth necessarily, on defense, especially yet. Um, so they could go up and down a little bit. But right now, I mean, I wouldn't want to play them. I mean, they're a tough team. They're tough to prepare for. Their coaches are figuring it out, um, and they're on a roll. So it's fun to watch.
So right now, I actually do feel good about their chances
I do. I
getting
think it's
in.
50-50, and maybe I would lean, if I had to make a lean, I would lean towards them getting in. Um, but that can change with 1 week, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a loss this week is like, okay, that almost puts me out.
That's
I don't
out. Yeah.
like you win this game and I start feeling really good about our chances. But because this is the Bears game is one I'm probably the most confident in. It's a
Mhm.
home game and the Bears are towards the bottom. Like you have to win that game.
Yep. Yeah. If you don't win
Um,
that game, you don't deserve to get in. So
right. With the Giants though, is one I'm looking at 3 teams at the lines. I mean, the Cowboys are in. I think they've locked that wild card spot unless somehow the Eagles lose out, and then the Eagles still have locked that top wild card spot.
yep.
Um, so the Giants though, they have to go on the road to the Vikings, who a little overrated, but they win. Kirk
Mhm.
Cousins is gunning after Stafford's record for fourth quarter comebacks in a season.
Yep.
I think he's got 7 so far. And then I
Yep.
think they're going to win in week 17 against the Colts. They're at home against the Colts.
Mhm.
Colts are bad.
Terrible.
And now Matt Ryan has been, I think, yeah, Nick Foles is starting. So who knows? We'll see.
I turned that team around.
Yeah, right. He's got a history of doing that.
Uh-huh.
And then the Giants have to go on the road against the Eagles. Now, if you almost hope that Jalen Hurts is back for that game,
Mhm.
or that the Cowboys are at least making it interesting where they can't bench someone because they've guaranteed the division and the
Yep.
first round bye.
Yep.
So you have to make sure that situation also doesn't get up to itself.
Yep.
So I see if things
You
go.
don't trust Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, no, especially after the speech at Mike Leach's funeral.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, I like Gardner though. He's funny.
he
That's
is.
funny.
He's a character for
He
sure.
is a character.
I expect them to go 1-2. The Giants to go 1-2. And again, that keeps the Lions ahead, even if the Lions
Even
go.
even here's my thing. I think Gardner Minshew actually is a competent quarterback, and that Eagles team is really good. He just can't mess it up. I think they can win games with him.
He almost has to turn but he's still flashy enough where he can't be the game manager.
No,
He doesn't, and
but
he has to be for these games. Rely on the
I
rest
think
of the
I
talent.
think I think he'll figure it out. I think he's good. I think he'll figure it out. I like Gardner Minshew.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah. So yeah, I think even if I think the Giants could go 1-2, and I think if the Lions go 2-1, I think they're in ahead of
Yep.
them. And
Yep.
then the Commanders, they have to play on the road against the 49ers, who are the hottest team in football
Yep.
right
Yep.
now.
49ers will beat him there.
The Fighting Brock Purdy's. Although is Brock Purdy not playing? I heard he got hurt too.
Yeah, I don't know. They might be on to their like fourth quarter.
Next guy in line. Either way, they make it work because the defense is good. The offensive line is good, and it seems like whoever they put at running back bumps off 6.5 yards of carry. So, then the Commanders are at home against the Browns. Now, I still think that could be a 50-50 game because the Browns, with Watson coming back, I think Watson's getting reacclimated to the speed of the NFL again.
The Browns are a better team than them, but I don't know if
He's
they're
playing better. Well, Watson's also
Yeah.
playing better every week. He was bad the first 2 weeks, and he's kind of been at least steady
Yep.
since. And then they've got to play at home against the Cowboys.
Mhm.
And the Cowboys may either be, again, fighting for the division or unless they've locked the top wild card spot. So you almost have to hope they're fighting for the division in this situation.
Yep.
So again, that looks like it could be 0-3 or 1-2 even for the Commanders.
Yep.
And then the Seahawks on the road against the Chiefs this week. That should be an L.
It needs to be an L.
The Chiefs just struggled against the Texans. So who knows?
Mhm.
And then the Seahawks are home against the Jets. But the Jets have a good defense.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I think that's another 50-50 game. And then if that doesn't put them out, if the Jets don't win, you get to look forward to week 18 where they're going to play the Rams. And you have to
Let's hope they're 0-2 going into that in the last three, and then maybe it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, especially
Because then I'll be okay.
If the Lions have one out from that point, then it won't matter for the Packers game.
Right.
So, yeah, but they have to get past two of those teams, right?
Yeah.
Cowboys are in.
Yeah.
Or the Eagles. And then one of those other teams can get it, whether it's the Seahawks, the Commanders, or the Giants.
So if both of those teams are 0, if all three of those teams could be 0-2, and the Lions could be 2-0 though, going into the last weekend, and then it doesn't matter, correct?
They lost the tiebreaker to the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
Although aren't they basically tied with the Seahawks now? They're both 7-7.
They're all 7-7. Every single of those, all those.
Well, with the tie, there's one that's 7-6-1, right?
Yeah, but essentially 7-7 just because of the tie breaks, right? So
and the Lions hold the tiebreaker
over the Commanders and the Giants. So they're essentially, that's what I mean. They're essentially tied with them right now, regardless of the tie, right?
The Lions could afford to tie one of these three teams.
They could, but technically they're behind the Seahawks, even though they're both 7-7. But if the Seahawks go 0-2 and the Lions go 2-0 the next two,
then they've locked it, yeah.
And then the other two teams also go 0-2, which is this is extremely plausible. Then yeah, they have it going into the last week.
I mean, the odds are if the Lions win this week, I bet the odds of winning out goes to 100% because it's certain that I think one of those three teams is going to lose.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the Chiefs should beat the Seahawks. The 49ers should beat the Commanders. The Vikings should beat the Giants.
Yeah, so if the Lions win this week, they have greatly increased their chances, right? But again,
in fact, they could even afford to lose a game and still have probably 70% odds.
Lost this again though, but you want to go 2-0 before because the game that's going to determine it, right? If you go 2-0 and the Seahawks go 0-2, you're good. You just don't want to be 1-1 and then be sitting there with the Seahawks and Rams game mattering. You know what I mean?
Having to beat Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau.
Exactly. You don't really want to be there. Now, you might have to anyway, depending on what happens with the Seahawks, but you wouldn't think you'd have to be based off the schedules. So,
yeah. So next week we will talk Michigan TCU, and we'll look to get one of the writers for On Three or the Wolverine. Yeah, we'll get one of them on. I'll find somebody.
Need
Even if
somebody
it's just some stupid Twitter fan, I'll find somebody. I don't care.
Get
If they have
somebody on there to
even
talk
if
a
they
little
pay,
Michigan football.
even if they pay for Twitter, as long as they've got a blue check mark, I will take them.
Better be a little careful. You got some weirdos out there.
So we'll do that. We'll talk probably the Lions, Panthers, good or bad news on that one at that point. And then we'll cover the rest of the bowl games. And then from that, we'll probably take a little break after the New Year's and come back maybe on an app.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. We might have some changes to the podcast. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
it's new year, new us.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We'll see you later, man. See you this weekend next Monday. Yeah.
See you Monday. Yeah.
Bye.